Good afternoon, all. This is Jason. Yeah, it's me again. I'm just introducing the second part of my assignment, 1.1, working with pros. On the 8th of April 2024, I attended an in-person Hatha yoga class at Yogahub in the Perth suburb of Mount Hawthorne. The teacher's name was Stacey McIntosh, and Stacey ran a level 1 course, so it was advertised as level 1. It was basically, you could characterize it as a talk through vinyasa, a talk through hatha, non-vinyasa. There wasn't much in the way of flow with this. It was more static poses. The theme or emphasis of the practice was linking breath with movement, and actually using bandhas as well. So linking breath with movement and making use of the bandhas, making the bandhas work for you. The opening of it, the welcome, was really done quite well, I thought, by Stacey. Stacey welcomed each individual into the class through the reception area, and I heard her asking about injuries or limitations. Very subtly, she asked very subtly, and I found that during the course or the practice, she actually introduced modifications. She didn't single anyone out, but she just introduced modifications in a discreet way to help anyone that was limited there. So I thought that was done really well. And in the opening, she did talk about working within yourself, and she did say that she was going to offer several options or modifications on most of the poses, and to select according to your ability or any restriction that you might have had. There was a warm-up, and it started in Supta Baddha Konasana, in a short sort of grounding session. As was implied just before, it was a lot to do with breath work, and this was stated right from the very start, where we did an exercise in diaphragmatic breathing, breathing to all corners of your rib cage, and utilizing the bandhas. And so that the theme was sort of kicked off right from the very start. After the diaphragmatic breathing exercise, we done some gentle neck and shoulder warm-ups. There was even a little bit of polyvagal work to more or less calm the nervous system down. Moved on to some gentle back looseners, cat, cow, down dog, a few back bends, windscreen wipers on the mat, before transitioning into a standing sequence. So that was basically the warm-up, and then by the time we got into the standing, I think we had loosened our lower back, and also loosened our hamstrings, so we're quite ready to go. So we started off pretty well in traditional Hatha fashion in standing, a lot of forward folds linking the breath with the movement, coming into some sun salutations followed by a warrior sequence, and then we went into some of the normal type of standing poses that you'd expect in a level 1 Hatha class, which is Trigonasana, reverse Trigonasana, forward folds, wide-legged forward folds, and one or two other sort of basically hamstring stretches and moving from, I'd say, the warrior sequence to some of the balancing stuff as well we did before actually moving back down to the mat. So once we got onto the mat, the sequence continued with seated forward folding, Baddha Konasana, Navasana, crow. The inversion was headstand, although she did offer shoulder stand to anyone that couldn't do the headstand. And then we moved in to Virupa Karanari. Sorry, my pronunciation isn't too good. Pranayama, another pranayama, and another pranayama move, and then Shavasana, followed by a short meditation. And the meditation was more about gratitude and being able to be here at this time and spending the time to work for our own good, for our body and our mind. I thought the sequence worked really well. There was a lot of work to start with, Langana, if you like, cooling, and we gradually moved up through the standing poses through to more of a Brahmana workout where we started to bring heat into the body. So there was a really nice curve there, the energy curve. So I thought that that worked very well. The inversion was done around about 2/3 of the way through the class, so we were nicely warmed up for that. I'd say transition-wise, that would be my only criticism. There wasn't a lot in the way of flow. There wasn't a lot in the way of much thought, I think, put into moving from one pose to the other. She did say at one particular point in time that vinyasa wasn't her thing, so we just basically, let's turn over and move into the next pose. There wasn't so much too much thought put into that, and I think that would have made the practice seem a little bit more flowing or sequential. The theme, as I said earlier, was breath to movement and bandha use, and that was stated in the warm-up. And I thought it was a really good way of warming up the body, warming up the breath, and it set the tone for the rest of the classes because it was reiterated several times throughout the class. Now, as I said earlier, the energy curve was really good. It was, and the sequencing reflected that with the nice grounding and breath work to start with, moving with some gentle stuff on the mat, transitioning to the standing poses, the sun salutations, the warrior. A little bit more heat was brought in there, and then gradually moving down back to the mat. So I thought that was done really well. I'm very, very impressed with that. The instructions were really clear and concise. Although she was very descriptive in the way she spoke and described the poses. She did most of the class herself, particularly any options that were stated. So, for argument's sake, Navasana, as I'm sure you're aware, there's several different ways of doing it, from lifting one leg at a time to 2 legs bent to straightening legs, and she done all of those for us and said, choose your poison if you want, pick the one that you want, and go from there. I think just to go back a bit, the peak pose I'd say was crow pose, but also Navasana, straight out of the Ashtanga playbook where you actually, between the actual lifting of the legs, you drop back and then you come up, use your hands and engage your bandhas to move your legs and feet off the ground. Supposed to be in full lotus, but not many of us were capable of that. But engaging the bandhas certainly made it easier to lift the legs and feet off the floor. And I would say that was the peak of the practice, along with crow. I think they were sort of the peak poses, if you like. And I should say at this point, that again, with the way the Navasana was done, I'd say that it was in line with the theme of the class, engaging the bandhas, using the breath. So I thought that was really good. As I said, the instruction was really good, not purely verbal. She did do a lot of demos. She did some small adjustments when we were in static poses. She walked around. I don't think it interfered with the class, and I think it was done appropriately. I heard her ask several times to students whether they were happy for her to do an adjustment, and I thought that was quite appropriate. And as I say, there was no interference with the class, and it wasn't overdone, which may have sort of, I don't know, hindered the flow of the class, if you like. In terms of Shavasana, 6-7 minutes was allocated to Shavasana. And it was partially guided. She did bring us back to the mat and talk us through sort of relaxing the body, relaxing the face muscles and the jaw, and taking all the stress and tension from your brow and between your eyes and your neck and your shoulders. And she took us through the basically the relaxation of the body, but after that she just left us. She left us to in quiet. So most of the Shavasana was unguided. So we lay back and in quiet and in the stillness of the room. After the Shavasana, there was a short pranayama, and it was Nadi Shodhana, and again the cooling aspect, bringing us back down from the heights of the practice. And then that was followed by a short meditation, and the meditation was more about gratitude, if you like, inspiration, gratitude, being able to actually spend the time in the class, which not everyone has that time. So we meditated a bit on that. So I thought that was really nice, a really good way to finish the class. My takeaways from the class, things that I would use in the class. The descriptive nature of the class was so good. She was very descriptive. She did talk quite a lot, which isn't everyone's cup of tea, but for me, I liked it because I learnt from it. The descriptive nature of the poses, the way you're holding yourself, your feet, in terms of safety first with feet and knee, the way you place your feet to protect your knees. The number of options that were given were really good, and it was done in a subtle way. And as I said right from the start, she talked about injuries and limitations with people, and she didn't single anyone out, didn't embarrass anyone, but simply said in general terms, if you have maybe, let's say, a back issue, or I think that one of the ladies had an intercostal issue in the class, this might be an option, but that wasn't you over there, you that's pregnant, or you that's this or that. It wasn't done that way. It was done very discreetly, and it worked really well. It showed a lot of empathy, I think, towards those people, and something I'd certainly try to incorporate. We want our classes to be inclusive, if you like. So those sorts of things brings people back. The breath work at the start was excellent, and it was used and touched upon throughout the practice. So the theme was set very nicely at the start of the class, and the bandhas were used several times, and she brought us back to that theme throughout the class itself. She brought us back to the bandhas and the diaphragmatic breathing. I mean, in Trikonasana, she talked about breathing into the side ribs, and in Navasana, engaging Mula Bandha and Uddiyana Bandha in particular to pull the feet up off the ground, the feet and legs up off the ground. Yeah, I thought it worked really well, and so the descriptive nature, the modifications, the breath work, they're all good takeaways, something that I'd certainly be looking at using going forward, incorporating into anything I do. The only thing I wouldn't have done, or would have done a little bit differently, as I stated a little bit earlier, was incorporating more vinyasa into the class. I think that would have help with the transitions, would have helped with the flow of the class. I'm not saying we needed to do a strong vinyasa between every pose, but at least a transition from the mat up to standing, and then back from standing to the mat. That might have worked a lot better. And I think that was probably a little bit lacking, and a small criticism, but something that if I was running the class, I would have tried to incorporate a bit more. I mean, that's just me. I actually like the vinyasa style where you're flowing from pose to pose. I think if you get into that groove, it tends to become meditative. I enjoy that meditative aspect, and I think there probably would have been others in the class that may have shared my opinion, maybe not. So that's something that I think would have made the class a little bit more flowing and seemed like the class is a little bit more sequential. That's the word I'm looking for, in nature. She didn't talk much about contraindications. She did say a few times that, about low blood pressure, and if you're doing your headstands, etc., to watch out for any of those aspects. She didn't talk much about that. Maybe that's something that she could have done a little bit better, but other than that, I really enjoyed the class, and I think that I don't like to pick, because I actually know this teacher, and I know she's very experienced, and I enjoy going to her classes, and I learn something from her every single time I go to the class, and I suppose I learn from just about every class I go to, but I don't like criticizing with someone that's had 20 odd years of teaching experience, but there's takeaways and there's things that you would do differently because we're all individuals. But overall, I loved the class, and I thought the theme was set very well to start with, and it was maintained throughout the class. And I think that she followed that script nicely, and I got a lot out of the class. And that's about all I can say. I don't want to waffle on too much here, but I think that overall it was an excellent class, and so I thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, I hope that satisfies the parameters of the assignment. So thank you very much, and until next time, I'll sign off. All the best.